As you may or may not be aware, the Russian forces, ever since basically 2022, they're doing a lot. They're doing it a lot this year. Have been targeting and destroying Ukrainian electric infrastructure. What it means that it's been targeting reactors, the grid, everything that basically works to produce electricity in Ukraine. And of course, that means that like about 80 or more percent of Ukrainian energy infrastructure is damaged or destroyed, which means that in a lot of places in Ukraine, blackouts follow, energy rationing follows. You have a lot of breaks in electricity every single day for 3 to 5 hours on end or even longer. It's especially pronounced. You would think it would be different. A lot of people thought, oh wow, it's probably not a problem in big cities like Kiev or Lviv. But no, actually, because Kiev uses a lot of electricity, that is actually a problem that is extra pronounced in big cities like Kiev. And that's why when I go to Ukraine, I usually experience these things. I usually, in the middle of the day, the electricity will just go off. Suddenly, all the things that I put in the fridge will slowly start sort of defrosting, slowly start going bad because the electricity is just off. Like, the internet will become wonky. The internet will become almost unusable inside of inside a building. If you depend on a laptop in order to do any work, tough luck unless you've got a battery or anything that could help your laptop stay online or a computer or anything, then tough luck. You're not gonna get anything done. Not to mention things like light. You don't, and when it gets dark, you just don't, you just live in the darkness unless you buy candles. Which is a thing that is quite useful in those situations, just using candles. So that's a thing. And there are these people that sort of try to combat this situation, the unsung heroes of Ukraine that are probably not talked about that much because it's not really exciting. It's not really it doesn't have anything to do with direct combat with cool things like tanks, artillery, or planes, or any other things that sort of are directly used against Russians to win the war. But nonetheless, it is still an extremely important thing that sort of for many people uh, is a component of how the winter will look like, because now we're in the summer. It's hot, it's very warm, but everybody in Ukraine is preparing for a very, very harsh winter without heating, without electricity, etc. Which will already we had past winters in which Ukrainian people inside of their own apartments had to set up tents, super blankets, many layers in order to keep themselves warm, like external stoves with those little gas bottles that you put inside in order to heat up food. Like there are many different things that people do. Of course, batteries. And we have energy workers that after the destruction happens, after the bombing happens, after the missiles hit the infrastructure, they try to get in there and repair as much as possible that would allow to return electricity, to return heating to as many houses as possible. And it's crucial and very dangerous work that is done by Ukrainian energy workers. And here we are. The counteroffensive meet energy workers keeping Kiev from darkness, which of course is a very difficult job. The Russians keep targeting the electric infrastructure. From what I've been experiencing, the problem of Ukraine being in darkness many times during day and night is going to be a problem for quite a bit before it gets better. When the explosions hit the thermal power plant, senior machinist Ihor was at home preparing for his shift. Living close to the plant, he heard the explosions clearly, and like most, Ihor moved toward the explosions. That's because the job of Ihor is basically to just, as soon as possible, go in there, stop the damage from spreading, sort of do a reconnaissance of what exactly the damage is, and repair it as soon as possible. Which is basically why the whole going in the direction of the explosion thing. One day you come in and see everything destroyed and realize that all your work is gone, said Ihor, who has worked at the plant for 24 years. It's Armageddon here. It shouldn't be like this. At that moment, all you feel is anger at the enemy, he said. Russia began heavily bombarding Ukraine's energy infrastructure in fall 2022, seeking to disrupt morale, a potential war crime against civilians under international law. The situation has worsened since then, with nationwide energy storages and rolling blackouts following further attacks. Over 80% of Ukraine's energy sector is now damaged. Workers like Ihor are the ones standing between Ukrainians and darkness. So now you basically have a little bit of an idea why I said these are unsung heroes that may not directly participate in combat per se, but their role is not at all less important. Because keep in mind that as far as I've seen, when electricity goes off in Kiev, you also start hearing a buzzing, a noise, this engine noise, because of quite a lot of businesses have equipped themselves in those electricity generators that usually use fuel, and those are really loud. So even when I'm indoors, wherever I stay, when I go to Ukraine, whenever the electricity goes out, you can hear this noise from outside the window because people just turn on those electricity generators. But not all businesses have those electricity generators. That's a problem that even affects like internet providers. That even if you have a battery of your own, it doesn't mean that your modem will provide you for electricity because the wider internet network might be out of energy, which disrupts the economy. Because as I've said, not all businesses have those electricity generators. That's a complex problem. So basically, what people like this do, those electric workers that go in and try to repair the damage as fast as possible, is not only giving people, individual people in houses and apartments, their light back, and in the winter heating back, but it's also allowing economy to flow undisrupted, you know? Ihor said that while employees are regularly trained for emergencies, the scale of the Russian attacks made it impossible to follow standard procedures because like you just don't know what will happen. You just Russia just bombs those places all the time. Like if you follow standard procedures, there's a chance that you might even get killed because Russia might very well bomb the same place twice. The situation was so unusual that it was impossible to follow the usual algorithm of actions. You had to use your own logic, where you had to involve other employees from other departments and do a common job together, Ihor said. Despite the chaos, the plant workers couldn't run away. You have to go to the epicenter of the event. You have to fix it, Ihor added, because if they don't fix it, then who will? And that means pretty dire consequences for everybody involved. Let's just say that in our modern society, it is pretty difficult to do without electricity. Also, by the way, drones also depend on electricity. There's even like a lot of the warfare sort of related things also actually depend on electricity. Just so we're clear, it's not just um, civilian infrastructure that actually depends on electricity. DTEC is one of Ukraine's largest private energy investors. The counteroffensive visited one of its bombed out thermal power plants, whose location remains undisclosed for security reasons. Despite being in a small town, the plant's scale is impressive. Visible from far away due to its towering pipes, a TPP generates electricity by burning fuel. They also circulate water through pipes to produce steam that turns turbines and generates electricity. While the TPP appears intact from the outside, the situation is radically different on the inside. The smell of long burning fires permeates the air, making it hard to breathe. To the naked eye, around half of the plant has been destroyed by several Russian strikes, leaving everything blackened by fire and littered with ash and missile wreckage. And of course, there's part of the problem is that Ukraine, it's getting better, the aid is getting better, but Ukraine still has to sort of prioritize where to place its anti-air defense systems, and usually Ukraine will of course prioritize the big cities, the citizens. So there's just not enough anti-air to protect all that energy infrastructure. That's also one of the problems in uh, this whole thing, in this whole equation. Of course, Romania and one other country have pledged recently adding new anti-air systems to Ukraine's arsenal, but the Ukraine needs a lot more. The first attack on the TPP occurred in late 2022, and while some equipment was restored with Western aid, another attack in May 2024 caused severe damage. Russia has carried out over 180 attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure since the full scale invasion started, targeting DTEK sites at least 7 times. Andriy, a senior specialist in the boiler and turbine department, arrived at the plant 5 to 10 minutes after a strike last month. Driven by adrenaline and fear, he rushed to help his colleagues. Like, this is basically how the damage looks like from the inside. You can see just it's all just burned to a crisp, destroyed. An emergency worker walks through a destroyed control room at the DTEK power plant in an undisclosed location in Ukraine on April 19th, 2024, amid the Russian invasion of Ukraine. There was so much adrenaline and fear, and my heart was pounding. I realized that it was still early, and I had to go and save his colleagues. Andriy said nothing that there around a dozen people on shift at the time, noting. But literally immediately the second alarm sounded, and we were informed that Kinzhal missiles were flying. We all had to hide in the bomb shelter as soon as we got an indication that the danger had passed, that the missiles were no longer flying towards us. We quickly returned here to and continued to extinguish the fire. See, that's what I said, that when the workers come in to rebuild things, the Russians might just very well attack the same place again, killing them. After controlling the flames, the extent of the destruction became clear. The site remains littered with equipment fragments and missile debris. Despite the devastation, the work never stops. With teams working day and night, the latest attack left the town without hot water for months. People often stop me on the street and ask me how long it'll take. Well, to be honest, it's hard to say when we'll be able to do it after something like this. We are working on it, Andriy said. The attack affected not only the TPP and town residents, but also animals on the plant's property. Some were rescued from the rubble, treated, and brought back to the plant. Across Ukraine, energy workers are fighting to keep the lights on. Andriy Medina from Kiev considers his role crucial. On May 31st, missile debris destroyed a transformer substation in Kiev. I'm pretty sure I've been still in Kiev on May 31st. Yeah, I think I might have still been in Kiev, or maybe I went to Lviv at that point. Well, the substation looks small, around 2.5 by 2.5 meters. The attack cut power to over 600 homes and businesses. The substation is located near residential buildings. It's a matter of luck that the debris didn't hit them. After the attack, Andriy and his team immediately headed to the site. However, getting there was challenging. The State Emergency Service of Ukraine first had to clear the debris and ensure the area was safe, which, of course, Russia has a bad habit of targeting emergency units as well during the second strike to kill those emergency service units. But it's neither here nor there. Andriy and the other energy engineers had to wait several hours before they were allowed to proceed to the site. To resolve the issue, they replaced the entire structure, and within an hour, electricity was restored to the homes. The TTEK team took 12 hours to fully restore power. While this may seem quick, it's important to remember that this was just a small substation. Restoring the full operation of the TPPs will take significantly longer. Western partners are aiding in restoring Ukraine's power system via the Ukrainian government. It will take at least a year to partially restore the energy system, assuming no new attacks occur. As the war continues, so will the attacks. The power engineers we spoke to predict that this coming winter will be the hardest. The power engineers we spoke to predict that this coming winter will be the hardest since Ukraine's independence. Andriy advises Ukrainians to prepare by buying batteries, there we go, or moving to detached homes as generators are unfeasible for multi-story buildings. Well, they're loud for one. My family bought warm clothes, bedding, and gas cylinders so that we could quickly heat water and fast food. My family will survive for a week or two, Andriy said hopefully. Back at the TPP, Ihor is determined to keep working too. I realize that my work is not just the work of a senior driver. I see myself as something more in this country because I provide welfare for people, he said. And that's basically the gist of it. That's basically the gist of this story. Russia has destroyed most of the infrastructure. We are seeing blackouts every single day, which disrupts people's work, which disrupt the functioning of the home.